So accordingly, I will start. Okay.
Without blood was affection is word with. So this was a very parliament with the right to legislate on social matters, but at the same time ensuring that the individual's liberty was not affected. The Supreme Court has been active and Parliament have been active in the to ensure equality to less privileged society, mainly by reservations in educational institutions and government jobs. So they have ensured reservations for scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. This was later extended to the other backward castes. And in 2019, another category was introduced, that is the economically weaker sections. But the Supreme Court has advised the government to make sure that reservations do not exceed 50% of the total number of seats and jobs, because that would infringe on the right to equal opportunity of other sections of society. And most recently, the Supreme Court and the Indian Parliament have acted to ensure gender justice by some very important legislation. Very recently, we have heard that the girl child was given an equal share in the property of the father, and legislation was also passed to safeguard the interests of women in other religious groups so that they are not subject to abuse. Now, these are measures that the Indian state has taken in just 70 years. Remarkable achievement. But when we are discussing India in 70 years, we have to also keep in mind that India is a young nation, but it is an old civilization. And we are the only country in the world that has maintained a living link with its past till today. The world has seen many ancient civilizations like the Greek, the Roman, and the Egyptian. But none of these civilizations has survived during the millennium, and we are the only country that has maintained a living link. Now, I would, since the time is very short, I will just make the points that I want to make in bullet points. So the first point that I want to make is the earliest expression that we get of patriotism. Patriotism means love for the land and its diversity of people, of beliefs, of cultures, is in the Prithvi Sukta of the Atharva Ved. Now, this Prithvi Sukta has been described as the first national song in the world. Now, this Sukta, it talks about the bounty of this land, how this land has been so blessed with abundance, and it talks about people of various, various kinds of people in different languages, different customs, different belief patterns, and it says that we have to express our gratitude to this land because she has nurtured all the people living here. She has not been mother to some and stepmother to others. So this is the first evidence that we get of what were the basic tenets of this civilization. It respected diversity, the earliest expression. So that is the first point that I want to make. Second point is so vast. It has so many different geographical, regions and climates, everything. But by the 8th century BC at the latest, the people of this land had traversed the whole subcontinent, and they had a very, very good idea of the physical layout of this entire subcontinent. Now, this was not a small achievement, given the means of communication and the vast variety of the geographical landscapes. And I just want to draw your attention to a piece that is there in a Buddhist text, and that piece is Mahagovind Sutta. This Mahagovind Sutta occurs in the Dig Nikaya. And what does it say? It describes this land as a bullock cart. It says it is narrow in front and broad at the back. So this is very like the geographical description of India that we know. So 2 points I've mentioned right now, the Prithvi Sukta and the Mahagovind Sutta. The third what I want to say is that right from early times, the of political unification was very evident there. You've all heard of Kautilya. He wrote the Arthashastra, and in that he says India, from the Himalayas to the seas, should have one ruler. So this ideal of political unification was very, very strong in India right from early times. Even though we were not under one ruler for large stretches of time, the fact to be noted is that the political ideal was unification. And any ruler in whatever small area of India that he ruled, he always aspired to be the Chakravartin, that means the ruler of the whole subcontinent. Now, this is the third point. Now I come to the next point, and that is that even in early ancient India, this country had created an identity for itself in the world community. And it was known for its philosophy and its wisdom, its spiritual quest. And in the 6th century BC, a Greek philosopher, Pythagoras, is believed to have come to India. And we all know Pythagoras, and especially you people, because you're science students, you would know about his theorem. But Pythagoras was also remembered for another thing, and that was he taught the theory of metempsychosis. Now, what is this metempsychosis? It is that when a body dies, the soul does not die with it and it enters another body. You will find this very, very similar to a very core belief in Hindu spiritual traditions, in Hindu philosophy. And this association of India with wisdom and knowledge did not confine itself only to the ancient period. In the medieval period, we have the coming of the Arabs, because the Arabs had established a world empire by this time. So they start coming to India. And among the first to come was a person called Masudi. And
Ma'am,
Masudi,
looks like you have muted yourself.
no,
There is a slight problem on YouTube. People are complaining regarding the audio.
But my thing is all right.
All right. Okay. Okay. Not a problem then.
Then what
Just
should I do?
I received a message that you are not audible.
Right from the
No,
beginning?
no, now in the past 2 3 minutes. It's fine now. It's fine now. They are asking to start from the Pythagoras theory.
Okay,
The okay.
all right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll start again. So, the next point that I want to make in bullet points is that India was able to create an identity in the world on the basis of its philosophy and spiritual quest. So, the earliest account that we have of a Greek coming to India is of Pythagoras. As students of science, you would have all heard of Pythagoras, his theorem. But Pythagoras is remembered also because he talks about metempsychosis. Now, what is metempsychosis? It is a belief that when the body dies, the soul does not die with it, it enters another body. Now, we are all very familiar with this doctrine, with this philosophy, because it has survived till today in India. But it's interesting that Pythagoras should mention this in the 6th century BC. There's another interesting account that we have, and that is of Alexander. You've all heard of Alexander. He invaded India in 326 BC. Now, all the historians and the writers who accompanied Alexander on his conquests, they write in detail about a group of people he meets in Taxila. And they call these people gymnosophists. Who are these gymnosophists? The Greeks describe them as naked ascetic philosophers. And they write in copious detail about Alexander's conversations with them. And we know that ascetic philosophers, sadhus, sants, they remain part of the Indian landscape till today. Now, in the 7th century, so it's not only the people who come to India in the ancient period who write about India's spiritual philosophy, etc. In the 7th century, we have the rise of Islam, and the Arabs control the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean and routes to India. And so we have a large number of Arabs coming to India. One of the first is a person called Masudi. And Masudi writes that hikmah means wisdom. It came to the world from India. So these are some accounts. Then I will just quickly mention the East India Company. You are aware that the East India Company come to India from early 17th century, and they established themselves in Bengal. And after that, gradually, they come to rule of the whole of India. Am I audible now?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah,
Okay.
not a
So,
problem.
so the East India Company establishes themselves in Bengal, and it is very surprising that the early officials of the East India Company, they write so glowingly about the Indian civilization. You know, who are the people? The first person is a person called John Groves. John Groves was the first official of the East India Company to write a book on India. And the way this book is available online, and some of you should read at least some pages of it to get an idea of the kind of reception India had received in the world. Then there was Luke Crafton. And then I want to mention Holwell. You know, Holwell was for some time even governor of Bengal. And he says that the Indians, I'm quoting him, they are an ornament to creation. An ornament to creation. This is what he writes. And in a similar vein, we have people like Alexander Doe and George Foster, among others. So these were early attempts by East India Company officials, individual attempts to understand India. But with the coming of Warren Hastings, the first Governor General of India, these individual attempts to understand India are replaced by systematic attempts. You know, Warren Hastings was a great admirer of Indian civilization. And it is said that he used to go to the Kali Ghat temple in Calcutta over the week, uh, every weekend. And they said that when you could not find Warren Hastings in Bengal, where was he? They would say he has gone Pandit hunting to Banaras. That is the kind of image that we have of Warren Hastings. And Warren Hastings created a group around him of officials who became proficient in Indian languages, and so many, they translated ancient texts, they translated Sanskrit texts, they deciphered the Brahmi script. So he gathered a group of people around him who were awed, impressed, and sympathetic to the Indian civilization. Now, coming to the last point that I want to make. So, this is this ancient civilization. Now, the modern sentiment of nationalism, national pride, it manifests itself first in Bengal. And why does it manifest itself in Bengal? Because over there, the elite was aware of its cultural heritage and was conversant with Western notions of progress. And you will be surprised to know that the educated elite in Bengal had set up the Hindu college by itself without any patronage from the government in 1816. In 1817, it set up the Calcutta School Book Society. This society distributed free books to the people. In 1818, they set up Calcutta School Society so that they could set up primary schools. And there were so many social reformers like Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. And then I want to mention a person you may not have heard of, Raj Narayan Basu. Raj Narayan Basu is regarded as the father of modern Indian nationalism. And he wrote a text, Prospectus for a Society for the Promotion of National Feeling among the educated natives of Bengal. Then he wrote a text, Hopes of an Old Hindu. In this hope, he said, I hope that the Hindus and Muslims work together under the Congress for a free India. Then we have, a national paper was started by the Tagores, and the Tagore said each nation has its distinct national identity, and we should be sure that we do not lose that national identity. So this awareness that despite being under British rule, despite taking to modern education, we have a national identity. What is that national identity? It is rooted in our past, and it is our responsibility and job to make sure that it does remain preserved. And it is surprising that in Bengal, the earliest textbooks were written by three people who were employed by the East India Company actually to do its own work. But when the East India Company had employed these people, they were very sure that the narrative of their past should not slip out of their hands. So the earliest textbooks in the modern period were actually written by three Indians who were employees of the East India Company, but determined that history should be taught the way the Indians saw it. And we have Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, we have, a nationalist ideology in art even in the field of art and aesthetics, they are promoting what they believe is the indigenous art tradition. So I think that when we remember our long journey, short journey as a nation, and a long journey as a civilization, what we need to uh, be happy about, be proud about, is that we have modernized our culture and civilization, but we have never abandoned it. So that is our strength that we should remember with pride, a young nation drawing its strength from its old civilization. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That
I
was
hope
indeed a wonderful talk.
I hope it was within your time limit.
Yeah. Thank you. You could even talk for 2 to 3 minutes more, but
No, we can take it up in the questions.
yeah. Okay. So I hope everyone got to learn a lot from our esteemed chief guest. A very wonderful talk, ma'am. So now the platform.
But were you was I audible throughout then?
Yeah. There was only lag for 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay, but
Then
that
you
you
restarted on
covered
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was clear, ma'am. So the platform is open for the audience to ask their questions now. The questions must be related to the talk that ma'am gave. So you can comment the same in the chat box and ma'am will try to answer them. You can start commenting your questions. Uh, okay, we have started receiving questions now, ma'am.
You can read out.
Yeah. In a minute. So Aditya Pete is asking, have there been any effects on the Greek civilization due to their Indian conquests?
We never conquered.
No. The Greek the Greeks conquered India.
Yes,
They never conquered, but they had a
yes,
campaign, Alexander's
yes,
campaign.
yes,
So,
yes.
have there been any effects on the Greek civilization due to the Indian conquest?
See, Alexander came, his stay was very short. So there was, and it was confined to the northwestern part of India. So there was no question of any effect on India or on Greece. The
Okay,
if the effect on India or on Greece.
this is the effect on Greece that Aditya is asking about.
No,
So,
I told you that the Greeks knew about Indian philosophy
okay,
before the coming of Alexander.
okay,
And when Alexander came, he was struck by his encounter with these philosophers, ascetic philosophers.
okay.
After that, we have a very short period of Greek rule in northwestern India.
Yeah, right.
You see, but then after that, we uh, don't have any direct evidence of Greek interaction with, as far as rulers are concerned. Because after that, we have the Mauryan dynasty, etc.
Okay.
But the Greeks were there on the borders of India. And in fact, if I can just say one thing, the first inscriptional evidence that we have of Indian influence on Greeks on the border of India is by a Greek ambassador from Taxila who came to India and erected a column in Vidisha, Madhya Pradesh. That column
Okay.
is still standing there, and that is
Okay.
the first inscription which talks about the worship of Vasudev.
Oh,
Vasudev means Vasudev Krishna. So
yeah.
the Greeks are coming, and we find this inscription by the Greeks. And
Oh,
yeah, and if you go to Sanchi, you will find certain, you know, statues. I mean, certain engravings on the wall which show Greek musicians at Sanchi. So
at
that
Sachi.
yeah, so
Okay.
the influence is uh, very very there much there. I just didn't see
Uh,
somebody just sent a message, ma'am, something.
uh, yeah. Okay. So Manas Deep will be one of our panelists in the afternoon session. So I have
Yes,
told him to ask his question in the YouTube chat box only.
yes,
So yeah.
but he can ask right now if he wants
Uh,
to, if there is time.
yeah. So first we will take another question from the YouTube chat
Yes,
box.
yes.
And so I hope Aditya's query was answered. So we'll be moving on to Devrishi's question.
Mm,
So, okay, in the revolt of 1857, many
mm,
princely states of the south, including Travancore and Mysore, and even the
mm.
Rajputana, did not participate in the rebellion. Why was such an incident observed?
See, the main reason, the immediate provocation for the 1857 revolt was the mutiny of the sepoys in Meerut region.
Yeah.
And why did they revolt? Because they said that the bullet that they have to bite is greased with the fat of cow and pig. Both this was taboo to the Hindus and Muslims. So
Okay.
it was to start with a revolt of the sepoys. The sepoys were from North India.
Okay.
They, so it was a revolt of the sepoys which took a different turn. And if the sepoys had not revolted, had not started the revolt, they may not have been in 1857. So Travancore and all did not have sepoys in the British Army at that time.
Oh,
It
okay.
started as a sepoy mutiny, and
Uh, right.
it was confined to a large extent to North India, because the bulk of the recruited in the British Army came from UP and Bihar. So
Uh,
they were the most affected.
uh, right. So, Devrishi, to summarize, ma'am told that the sepoys, the mutiny of 1857 was also called the Sepoy Mutiny, and the bulk of the soldiers were from North India, and Travancore and the South states, they didn't have any sepoys. Okay, so I hope your query was answered. So the next query is from Saket. Saket is asking the fact that Raj Narayan Basu's writing were one of the first initiatives to influence nationalism among the populace. Would we
Yes.
say that the likes of Gandhiji, Sardar Patel were influenced from Basu's writings?
See, who was influenced, who was not influenced is difficult to say. But if you study from Raj Narayan Basu's writings onwards, all the leaders of the freedom movement advocated Swadeshi, respect for indigenous traditions. So it was a continuum. There was nobody who broke away from this basic thrust of all leaders remained the same.
Okay, so we'll take Manas Deep's question now.
Yes.
Manas has a question. So
Mm.
he is asking, I have a question for ma'am. Does she feel that many Indian archives, particularly documents, which are so unique and would give us a sense of pride when we viewed them, are not easily accessible?
It is so difficult to access them. If you go to
Yeah.
the National Archives, you will realize how difficult it is. You know,
Okay.
you have, what is the procedure? You go one day, you give the slip of the documents. First, you look up the computer what documents you want. When you identify the files, then you give a slip, because the National archives has millions of files. It cannot be giving you a file that day. It is later to see whether your files have been located or not. Then there is a limit to the number of pages you can get photocopied per file, because these are original documents, so they have to preserve them also. For a researcher, it's a back-breaking task. I absolutely agree.
Okay.
But now there is an attempt being made by archives all over the world as much of their data on the net as possible. So digitalization is proceeding at a rapid pace, and so many documents, you don't have to visit the archives. They're trying to make it available to you online.
Yeah, that's a great initiative. The reason Manas asked because he has written a blog regarding cricket in our magazine, and
Yes,
it was very difficult for him to research on cricket during partition times. So
absolutely. I
that,
understand
yeah,
absolutely, because
yeah,
I know how difficult it is.
yeah. So hope Manas, your query was cleared, and you will visit the archive soon. So next we have Rishabh asking, as you mentioned, the Greeks traversed throughout India. Did this influence some Greek findings which were already known in India?
So how could they see? They came in the ancient period. Uh, how could they be more conversant than the inhabitants of this country? There, they came to the northwest. We have evidence of their presence in Vidisha, as I told you. We have in the Sanchi stupa, we have engravings of Greeks. We have in Karle certain inscriptions of the Greeks. But the Indians knew of their land well before the coming of the Greeks. That's what I tried to argue.
Yeah. Okay. So Rishabh's
But
query was also,
1 minute.
yeah, yeah.
Representation the Greeks is found even in the Udaygiri caves in Orissa. So
Oh, Odisha.
we
Okay.
find a person, engraved over there, a Greek figure in Orissa. We have in Karle, that is in Maharashtra region. We
Yeah,
have in
Karle Baje caves near Lonavala, right?
yes,
So
absolutely. So
that's yeah.
there are 2-3 inscriptions over there. Then we
Okay.
have at Sanchi and we have at Vidisha. So there is evidence of Greek presence, but uh, it's not that they could tell us something about our land which we did not know.
Okay. So Rishabh's query was cleared. Some people are facing problems with the chat box. They have messaged me. Will that be okay?
Yes, you
Can I
please.
ask? Okay. So, why did acceptance of various religions lead to eradication of Vedic culture?
See, this is a very interesting and complex question. I'll just take a few minutes to answer this, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
uh, the Vedic religion, what we call the Vedic religion, was a, a religion of offering to the gods by yagyas or sacrificial fires.
Okay.
At some point, image worship became the dominant belief system. So the yagyas gave way to murti puja. But that does not mean that we discarded Vedic yagyas, because in every yagya now, the mantras that we perform are the Vedic mantras. And the huge yagya fire has been replaced by havan and small fires. When we do a puja at home or anywhere, there's a havan that is lit up. Na? When you go to the mandir or do a
Yeah.
puja, havan
Yes.
is there. So
Yes.
that is a smaller version of the Vedic sacrificial fires. So Vedic religion was not discarded. It took on new forms because the bulk of the people took to image worship. So image worship becomes the dominant form because the popular the general sentiment was in favor of image worship, and that we get evidence of image worship from the time of Panini.
Oh,
Panini, Panini, the great Sanskrit
uh,
grammarian, he
yeah.
mentions image worship. So, to answer the question, Vedic religion is not eradicated. We have yagyas, the Vedic mantras are recited at the time of every puja, and the Vedic gods are given the position of dwarpals to the new gods that come into prominence.
Okay. So I hope Atreya, your query was answered. So we'll be taking another question. Okay, so according to Saket, his views are, ma'am, with the British invasion, we were while the Mughals plundered us culturally. So what would you feel was the greater loss?
See, I'll answer this question in two parts. First, I'll talk about the you see, time the main source of the income of the state was agrarian taxation because there were no industries. Trade was not agrarian taxation. Agrarian taxation means you tax the peasant.
Yeah.
So the large number of accounts that we get that the taxation was excessive to the extent that many peasants were forced to flee from their land because the taxation was too much for them to bear. Now, the peasant had to part with almost the entire produce to pay the state demand. All right. Now, this state demand was actually distributed among a very, very small section of the people. Who was it distributed among? It was distributed among the so it was distributed among the Mughal family, the Mughal princes, and the ministers, etc. So this entire surplus was distributed among maximum 1,500 people.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that
So you are talking
no,
about Jagiri system, right? The
yes,
giving Jagiris. Okay.
the Mansabdari system and the Jagidari system.
Okay.
All right. So the entire agrarian surplus was distributed among a very, very small section of society. Now, this society were consumers. They did not do anything productive with that wealth. They did not set up any, you know, any means by which wealth could be regenerated. So they were just consumers. In the British period, there is a historian, Utsa Patnaik. She has done a fantastic study of the amount of wealth that Britain took away from India.
Oh,
So, I mean, it's for you to answer that question the way you want to. They took away wealth from India. The Mughals, they consumed that wealth, but it's not that the peasant got anything in return. It was one way traffic from the village to the city, but the city never gave back anything to the village.
oh, okay. So he asked that Mughals destroyed us culturally. So we can also say that Mughals had also great economic impact.
See, that cultural destruction is a question that will take quite some time. So I don't think I will be able to answer that, but the economic effects were not very good.
Okay, so I guess we have a time for a short question, a last question to end this session.
Mm.
So Keshav is asking, ma'am, as we know about the travelers that came to India, like Ibn Battuta and Yuan Sang of China. So do we have a similar account of an Indian traveling to a faraway land? Is there
See,
any account?
in the ancient period, when there was hardly any means of communication, I told you about Pythagoras, I told you about Alexander and the historians who come with him, etc. For the ancient period, uh, there is only one reference that I have come across. That is
Okay.
an Indian who is supposed to have gone to Syria.
Oh,
But Indians were going as traders because we know Indus Valley civilization, the traders were there in the neighboring countries.
Yeah.
But we don't have any account. We don't have any
Okay.
account.
So there are no
And
mentions, as in
they
archives or
no,
papers like that.
they
Okay.
don't write. And see, the Chinese, they came, they wrote so much. But
Yeah.
there is very little evidence of Indians going to China to learn. Because India was regarded as a repository of wisdom and spiritual knowledge. So so many Chinese came. Indians went to China, but there is very little record.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so
That
much.
was a great session. You answered as many questions as you could. I hope even I learned a lot.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for
thank you
calling
so
me.
much. Yeah.
Atharv, hello Atharv.
Uh,
Hello, ma'am.
yeah. So Atharva and our next chief guest, renowned quizmaster Thejaswi Udupa, have also joined. So Thejaswi and Meenakshi ma'am, they'll be unveiling. So
I am Atharva Kulkarni, President of VIT Pune Quizzing Society. We at QSOC are extremely honored and delighted to have Padma Shri Meenakshi Jain and Mr. Thejaswi Udupa as our chief guest today. Now we will proceed to the unveiling of our magazine, Allura.
Hello, am I audible now?
We are live again according to Parth. So I will ask in the chat box. Atharva, say something.
Hello, am I audible?
Atharva, you are audible. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
We are
okay.
audible. You can continue. Parth, can you please shift the slide to the first photo? Atharva will tell the contributions of the team again in a quick, in 1-2 minutes.
Okay, so let us look at the team that has worked passionately for Allura. Content and design are two of the most important aspects behind it. Starting with the designers, we have Nisha Valvekar, who has designed the cover and end pages of Allura. Then we have Parth Pawar and Darshit Shah, who have designed the templates and few of the articles. Let us look at the content team. We have Rishabh Zadav, who is the Allura. Then we have Devrish Kaul, who is the research lead, and Saket Singh, who is the content lead. Do read their articles in our magazine. Not to forget the team who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Tanvi Kshatriya and Arvind Mishra, marketing leads, Palak Singh and Ariman Garu, Partha Sabnis, technical director, and Thejaswi Shiv, website designer, have worked tirelessly behind the scenes, and it is because of their work that we are able to conduct this event right now. And last but not the least, Naman Jain, the editor of Allura, he has handled the magazine beautifully and has put his effort for the past 1 month. Kudos to the entire team of Allura.
Atharva. So, guys, do check out the magazine. It will be on our website, qsocvitpune.com at 12:30 or 12:45 p.m. And stay tuned. We will be having Mr. Thejaswi Udupa as our second chief guest with Atharva Kulkarni. So, their session will start in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Meenakshi ma'am, for VCat vision. We were glad to launch.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can I leave now?
Yes,
I'll wait for the magazine. I'll wait to see the magazine.
ma'am, the magazine will be available on our website at 12:30 p.m.
Okay. So can I leave now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you very much.
We are honored,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll be starting with the next session at 12 p.m.
Sorry, Atharva, your voice was breaking completely.
Hello, sir. Am I audible now?
Nope, not really. Nope, not really. You were more audible when you were not using your headset. Maybe you can go back to that. Yeah, much better. Yeah, much better.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have Mr. Thejaswi, technologist, CEO of Floor, India's fastest growing and most trusted home buying platform. He is a columnist writing about a broad spectrum of topics ranging from pop culture to city heritage, and lastly, an avid quizzer and a quiz master. Udupa did his MBA from IIM Bangalore, one of the most prestigious institutions in India, and has been a problem solver ever since. He is an eminent personality in quizzing circuits across India and is one of the few in the nation who has believed in the art of quizzing and has promoted it. We are glad to have you at our magazine launch. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Atharva. I hope everyone can hear me. I think there's some problem with my video stream, so I'll possibly turn that off. Okay. Okay. I think they're saying there's a problem on YouTube Live with the voice. Is it better now? All right. I'll let Naman get back on that. Anyway, thanks a lot, VIT Pune and Atharva and Naman for having me over. I won't take too much of your time. I'll just maybe spend some 5 or 10 minutes talking about why this whole art of quizzing. It's that old cliche about whether something is an art or a science, and science by its where things are repeatable and you will get the same result every time when you have a certain Z at the input and you do the exact same steps, you'll get the same result over and over again. That kind of repeatability in experiments is like a key feature of science. Quizzing is anything but that. I mean, as someone who's been quizzing now for 2 decades, or anyone who's even just started quizzing will know that there is no way you can predict any such thing in quizzes. Sure, mug a lot, you can catch facts, store them, revise them over like you would do for your school exams and stuff like that. And yes, there are people who do that. There are quizzers who do that, and some of them are very successful as well. But then that takes the fun out of quizzing. There's no fun if you're treating quizzes like one more subject in your acads with the syllabus and everything. So that's like the starting point for saying the art of quizzing. But then there is art in terms of how you crack questions as well. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, these are all best explained through examples. A couple of days back in one of those online quizzes, I mean, one thing ever since the lockdown started was uh, there are a whole bunch of online quizzes happening within India as well, but then this gives you an opportunity to try out quizzes happening completely in other parts of the world. So there is something called Wiki Quiz where I keep taking their quizzes a day, which I keep trying out every now and then whenever I remember to log in at those times. And a couple of days back, they had an interesting question, which looked about this mountaineering club called Green Mountain Club, which manages something called the Long Trail. And they wanted to know which state in the USA do they operate in. There seems to be hardly anything. I mean, I've never come across a mountain club. I've never come across something called a log trail. And it feels like there is no way you're going to get it unless you already knew that information. But then a little bit of thinking and you see Green Mountain, okay, and he's asking for a US state. Is there any US state that etymologically comes from that same thing? And that's when you remember that, yes, this mountain is Mont, green is Verdi, Mont, Vermont. Vermont essentially literally means green mountain. So you know that, yeah, that must be the answer. So there is an art in cracking questions as well, in the sense that you may not have ever known that Vermont had a Green Mountain Club for mountaineering, or Vermont had something called a Long Trail, but you feel very happy when you answer that question because you just put 2 and 2 together and you came up with an answer. For me as a quizmaster, more importantly, there's a lot of art in framing questions as well. Even before we frame questions, there's a lot of art in finding questions as well. I mean, where do you find questions that you submit? I have a habit of bookmarking a lot of things, and it doesn't just come from things that I read on the internet or anything. In fact, very few of it come from things that I read on the internet. Most of my questions come from books that I'm reading, or movies that I'm watching, or even music that I'm listening to. Sometimes not even that. I mean, one of my favorite questions over the years, which I've asked in a few quizzes as well, is about the Marble Mandi in Bangalore. I think I've talked about it previously as well. There is around a stretch of 1 kilometer of Banerghatta Road where pretty much every marble shop in Bangalore, it's right there. Really large marble shops to tiny marble shops. Pretty much all marble shops in Bangalore are concentrated in that one tiny 1 kilometer stretch of Banerghatta Road. And I've often wondered why, of all places, why is the Marble Mandi in Bangalore here? It could have been anywhere else. It could have been where various other such marketplaces are, which are usually concentrated in. So Bangalore has this area called City Market, where most of such hardware mandis and stuff like that area. But this is at the beginning of Banerghatta Road, and then uh, found out once in one book on Bangalore's history that it started right there because the mandi started around 150 years ago. And back then, pretty much the only people who would want to buy marble are not people constructing houses, because marble as a flooring option was a little too expensive then, especially when in Bangalore you get very good granite anyway, which is comparable in quality. The biggest customer for marble were essentially relatives of dead people who would use them for making headstones, and specifically dead Christians, because Hindus, the majority of the population, they would bury their dead. But Bangalore, being a cantonment town, had a significant number of Britishers and the earliest European cemeteries, earliest Christian cemeteries in Bangalore are right at the beginning of Banerghatta Road. It's a very old cemetery full of very nice looking memorials and gravestones. There are a lot of famous people buried there as well. They were the primary customers for marble when the marble mandi started nearly 2 centuries ago, and that is the reason marble mandi came up there as opposed to where you'd otherwise find it. And these are kind of questions that you just they come up in your mind as a question because you have gone down Banerghatta Road so many times. In fact, given that I studied 2 years in IMB, it's almost like it was a daily commute as well. And you'd always wonder why when you figure out the answer, it seems interesting enough to become a quiz question on its own. You can find quiz questions even if you're just browsing through social media, looking at your friends put up their Instagram posts. A couple of things that I've bookmarked recently. Friends, after the lockdown has started, has gotten completely into this whole fitness thing, and always videos of her doing her exercises and putting them up. And most of them are your usual things like burpees and push-ups and stuff like that. Every now and then a very interesting exercise name props up, and that makes it okay. That looks interesting. So there was something that I saw called prisoner squats, which is essentially your normal squats, but then you're holding your arms behind your head, which is the typical pose whenever a police is trying to arrest, trying to make sure that a prisoner has his hands visible behind his head. And you're putting your hands behind your head and then doing the squats. And apparently those things popular exercise routine called prisoner squats. Similarly, there was something that I saw that was even funnier called a fire hydrant thing, which, as the name indicates, the exercise looks exactly like what a dog would do when it sees a fire hydrant. I mean, these might look very banal sources to find questions, but they actually make some of the more interesting quiz questions, because there is, what the Indian quiz community looks for as a funda, which is actually workoutable from either a visual or from a description kind of a thing. Another interesting thing that I came across recently, and I think I put it up on Ottawa as well. I was reading a nice memo guy whose grandfather, his maternal grandfather was Parsi, and his maternal grandfather decided to choose cremation over being sent to a Tower of Silence, which is what most Parsis go through. And the reasoning was very interesting. And it says now nearly 10 cities in Mumbai are adopting this, and it has nothing to do with the vulture population in Bombay getting extinct and the general gruesomeness of that method. I mean, they don't doing it for generations and generations. The only reason these guys are adopting to do this is Tower of Silences, the Dakmas have a very strict rule of no Parsis allowed. I mean, anyone who's not a Parsi is not allowed inside. And given the dwindling population, a lot of Parsis are marrying outside the community, but their grandparents are still Parsis, and those grandparents would definitely like their relatives and grandchildren to attend their funerals. So these are Parsis adopting to as practical and as emotional a purpose of making sure that their relatives can actually attend their funeral services. So, and these are things. So when you're reading a personal memoir, you don't think of them as, I will find some quiz question fundas here, because it's not talking about any facts or any such thing, but usually much better sources for finding quiz questions than articles or listicles that you would find on the internet. There are multiple sites that tend to be favorites, especially among college quizmasters. But yeah, they're good. They're good. They're handy. They're quick for you when you're setting a quiz, and you have just 2 days to set a quiz. You need some website that you'll go to an Atlas Obscura or a Mental Floss or something, find some interesting facts and put them down as questions. But what I've learned over the years is that your best questions always come from obvious sources. And then, of course, there is also a lot of art in how you frame the questions. Again, taking the example, and this time I'll give a badly framed question as an example. In one of the wiki quizzes that I saw recently, the question was this: the marathon course in which Olympics was designed to resemble a dachshund named Waldy? Here, the only way you can answer the question is that somewhere in your memory, you know that a dachshund named Waldy was the mascot for one of the Olympics. And which Olympics was that? Was 1972 Munich, and therefore you will put down Munich as still a nice question. It's a very interesting fact, the fact that the marathon circuit was designed in the shape of a Olympic mascot. Would have been that much more interesting if you'd actually flipped it around. If you'd said, marathon circuits tend to usually follow, nobody really gives too much thought to the shape of a circuit, but in introducing a concept for the first time in Olympics, one of the ways they publicized it was also designing the marathon circuit in a particular manner. So what was the marathon circuit designed to resemble? And that made to resemble Waldy the dachshund. The joy that you get in answering it is way more than remembering that well filed away fact that yes, 1972 Olympics had a dachshund named Waldy as the mascot. Or this applies to the fact that you see instead of directly asking for it. For example, a novel that I recently read, a very nice novel called 7 Eves by Neil Stephenson. The International Space Station, which is where all the action happens, nobody calls it the ISS in that world. Everyone calls it Izzy. It's essentially ISS getting shortened into a cutesy name called Izzy. You could have always asked directly, so what is the International Space Station nicknamed in this novel, 7 Eves by Neil Stephenson? And the only way you can ever get to Izzy is if you also somehow have read the book and therefore you know that it's called Izzy. But then you're kind of alienating 99% of your audience there because they might not have read the book, and there's no way for them to actually get it unless some divine inspiration strikes and they decide to also come up with the same nickname as the author. Around saying in this book by Neil Stephenson, a lot of action happens in a place that's nicknamed Izzy. So how do we better know Izzy? Then it's accessible, it's actually workoutable, because you'll start to think, oh, okay, this is some kind of a science fiction work, which means that they tend to get set in space and so on. Now, what in space could possibly be nicknamed Izzy? Then good chance that you will. Izzy sounds like a good nickname for ISS. The other thing is also how you use audio and visuals while framing the questions as well. And for me, a simple thumb rule has always been, if you're putting a picture, if you're playing a song, if you're playing a video, unless that actually directly contributes in helping answer the question, then don't put it. Don't put a general photo of a old Caucasian man who looks like 500 other Caucasian men saying, identify this person, if it's not really going to help people identify that visual. Again, an example of a quiz. Very interesting fact about the Tashkent metro system. So until 2018, photography was completely banned in the Tashkent metro system. And the reason behind it is also very interesting. But this question becomes much, much better if you put a photograph of one of the Tashkent underground metro stations. And there, if someone notices doors that are there in these stations, typical grand Soviet era style metro stations. But one incongruous thing that you'll notice is that there are a lot of really thick metal doors. And it's possibly, okay, why in something that is underground? And then you think that, oh, maybe an alternative purpose that these metro stations were serving could be emergency news. They were always paranoid about getting hit by an atom bomb. So these metro stations in Tashkent were all designed to be bunkers in case of a nuclear strike. Only recently they would say, okay, fine, we're not going to use them as emergency bunkers, so you can go ahead and photograph them. But if they were so militarily sensitive as serving as emergency bunkers, obviously you will not allow photographs. So that's the reason why until 2018 photography was banned in the Tashkent metro station. And the only way you can a quizzer can hope to get, if he has not already read about this fact, is that picture helps him. That picture helps him with those doors being there. So, that all of these kind of just, I mean, if you allow me to ramble, I'll ramble on for a long time. But what all of this tie back to the fact that everything in quizzing, from answering questions to finding them as a quizmaster to framing questions as a quizmaster, it's not a science. There's not a set of rules that are there, but there is an art to it. And the fact that there is an art to it is what makes it such a fun and interesting and intriguing activity. So I'll end my supposedly brief intro on the art of quizzing there, and I'll just take questions from you now, Atharva.
Thank you, sir, for such an insightful session. You talked about a diverse variety of topics, and we got to learn a lot about quizzing from your talk. The audience must have also been pleased to hear you, and I'm sure that they must have changed their perspective towards quizzing after hearing to your talk. Let's have a few questions with sir, through which we'll get to know more about his quizzing experience and his perspective towards quizzing. We'll also have a few questions from the audience later at the end of the session. So, sir, I have to ask you, how were you introduced to quizzing, and since how long been in the quizzing circuit?
So compared to most quizzers, I'm a bit of a late bloomer. A lot of quizzers start very early in their school days. That's when the quizzing bug bites them. During school and till around second PUC, that's the equivalent of 12th standard, I was more interested in public speaking events. I was more into jams and debates and shipwrecks and those kind of things. Yes, part of what I do on every week, and then 4-5 years down the line, almost every weekend, I'm either taking part in a quiz somewhere or setting a quiz and conducting one somewhere. And yeah, it's been what now, around 2 decades where a whole bunch of appeared into quizzing. And I see it no different with any similar kind of activity that people tend to take a shine to and are passionate about. I mean, some people go long marathons on weekends, some people go play tennis. And I find similar joys in quizzing every weekend. So that I think is nutshell of my quizzing journey. Atharva, your voice is really breaking.
Hello, sir. Your video is not visible.
I turned off my video because I thought my video wasn't working properly.
Actually, we are streaming it on YouTube, so we'll so it will be better if you turn it on.
All right. Video's back now.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, sir, for answering this question. And indeed, you are an inspiration to all the college quizzers who couldn't take up quizzing or didn't have interest in quizzing during the school days, but got interested in quizzing in their college days. So you're really an inspiration for all the college quizzers. So let's move on to the next question. So I would like to ask you, what, according to you, defines the uniqueness of quizzing?
It's quizzing is halfway between being a sport because it has all the elements of a mind sport, at least. I mean, in that sense, it's comparable to chess because it's competitive. You are going up against either another person or another team. you do care about your scores, you do care a lot about winning and so on. But unlike a lot of sports, there is far more joy that you derive from quizzing, from just the sheer uh, fact that you're participating in it, which does not happen with too many other sports. I mean, you play chess, and if you're losing 10 matches in a row, I don't think you'll be as interested in chess anymore. Or let's say any sort of athletics, if you aren't as physically gifted as the people you're playing with, you will lose interest. But quizzing is not like that. I know a lot of regular quizzers who've been quizzing now for 15, 20 years who aren't really doing great in those quizzes, but they are still there at every quiz because they're enjoying the activity. They're enjoying discovering the way the questions have been framed, discovering their answers. There is joy in even not getting the answer. In fact, some of the best moments in quizzing happen not when you crack something, but when you see the answer and you're like, oh shit, I should have got that if only I had done this small leap of mental math, mental logic. If I'd done that, I would have got it. This is something I knew, this is something that I read about, but damn it, I missed it just by this small bit. And I mean, in Bangalore slang, we call them as HAM, which stands for Akkan Just Miss. Will not go into the unparliamentary origins of it, but those AGM moments are what really make quizzing enjoyable. And somehow Indian quizzing specifically, because pretty much every city, I mean, even though I sometimes make fun of Kolkata styles and so on, pretty much every city in India, the onus is always on making the questions workoutable. There, almost no quizmaster is really trying memory skills or just the depth of your knowledge. Yes, of course, having a reasonable depth of knowledge helps. Like going back to that same Vermont example, knowing that Vermont literally means Green Mountain does help, but it's not just a test of knowledge or of your memory. Can you remember this fact in this small amount of time? But there is always the onus on making the questions as much as puzzles, as much as they are, just a test of your knowledge. And that makes Indian quizzing that much more enjoyable because it is a more intense activity in that sense, and you also feel more satisfied even if you're not getting the answers. And that's usually the hallmark of a good puzzle as well. Once you see the answer, if you didn't yourself superb, you feel on top of the world. But a lot of puzzles as well, once you see the answer and you see how the question leads to the answer, and similarly in a lot of quizzes, a well framed question, if you see how that question led to the answer, that actually for you, and that in a sense makes it unique amongst most other comparable activities that you might do. I mean, maybe board games come close, but then board games is very limited to how big your social circle is because you need people to play it with, and you can't play it with 100 people. That way is far more inclusive. I mean, even if you do not have a team, in most cities you can just turn up at quizzes happening there and you will find a team on the spot. Of course, there's a lot of solo quizzing also happening. In fact, I love quizzing quite a bit because I find it a kind of a nice meditative experience. I have a really low attention span. The only time I come closest to doing any sort of meditation is when I'm taking a quiz alone, something like a Mahaquizzer or something where you're running up against the clock and your entire focus needs to be on trying to answer those questions. That's probably the closest I ever come to having a sort of a meditative experience. So quizzing per se in India is unique, and each flavor of quizzing also that you get in India is unique and fun in its own way.
Agreed, sir. There are different genres and uh, different flavors to the quizzing circuit in India. Also, the competitiveness of despite of the result, whether you win or lose a quiz, the amount of knowledge that you gain from a quiz is really beautiful. So let's move on to the next question. I would like to ask, what is your perception that quizzing is just mugging up some information from internet?
Yeah, that's something I kind of touched upon previously as well. Uh, sure, mugging can help, I mean, it's the end of the day. If you build up that is 10 times or 500 times bigger than your competitor's pile of facts, and you have the ability to quickly recall them, sure, it will help in quizzing. But then, not everybody can do it that way. I know the Indian education system is primed for making people do things that way. And I see it happen a lot more in biz quizzes. I mean, certain flavors of quizzing kind of tend to have a syllabus by the nature of a lot in biz quizzes, because there your syllabus is kind of defined, which it shouldn't be. I mean, anytime I do a biz quiz, I try to make sure that I'm always outside that syllabus than ever inside. I'll never put photo of some or a logo of a company and say identify. But yeah, there are people who do it, and there is, yes, you can to some extent be successful. But for me, it just takes the fun out of quizzing as an activity. That's the joy in quizzing does not come out of you quickly remembering something that you had marked up. The joy in quizzing comes when you work an answer out, or even if you do not work an answer out, when you see how an answer is being worked out. And thankfully, more quizmasters in India focus on making their choices and just the mugging aspect of quizzing. And in general, the better you get at working answers out, the better you are at taking those intuitive guesses. Knowledge is only 25, knowing an answer is only 25% of the thing in quizzes. Being able to say the question, the way it's worded, it's very likely to be X as the answer and not Y. Being able to make those judgmental calls, that's what actually makes you a better quizzer, and you'll have a far better strike rate at succeeding in quiz with this approach rather than mugging up facts and building one database or repository of forget facts. I mean, the last few years, the fashion has been to just hoard a lot of PPTs, go through those slide decks every now and then, go through those slide decks on SlideShare and so on. There, you're just relying on some quizmaster up asking the same question as some other quizmaster already has, because the universe of sources of where questions come from also tend to be kind of limited, in the sense that a lot of quizmasters tend to favor a bunch of sites, Wikipedia, and so on and so forth. So you're counting on the same fundas getting repeated, and therefore your good scores and scores of PPTs. Again, sure, it might help you answer 2 or 3 questions per quiz, but waste the joy in that, waste the fun in that. So.
True. We are glad to know you're towards quizzing. It's definitely unique, and everyone should follow that approach. Just looking up won't help. The ability to work out answers is very important. So thank you, sir, for answering this question. So this would be the last question. Then we'll take questions from the audience. How have you indulged yourself in quizzing during the quarantine?
In fact, ever since the lockdown started, there have been far more quizzes than there were before the lockdowns. But then most of these are also still a simulacra of an actual quiz. Doesn't mean, in fact, in the first few months, forget weekends, pretty much every day there was some or the other quiz happening on Discord or on Zoom. Pretty much every brand kind of tried to jump onto the bandwagon, did their own quizzes on Zoom or Kahoot, or a whole bunch of platforms that you discovered suddenly that were amenable to online quizzing. I mean, I'd never used Discord until the lockdown started. I mean, they're fun, and I've seen quizzes happen between groups of friends. I've seen more organized quizzes happen by quizzing societies that have been doing it, colleges that have been doing it. And like I talked about WikiQuiz as well, that is something that, I mean, I was very regular at one point in time. Now it's lesser and lesser of it, but they all still end up as being simulacra of the real thing. What we, that joy of being in an actual quiz and listening to a question, seeing the question and answering it. I mean, I won't talk about how a lot of people Google and that takes away the fun. That's okay. I mean, that's part of online quizzing. You can't stop people if people are going to be so competitive and so, in some sense, insecure about how their image is seen amongst their peers. They will end up doing. And of course, there are quizzes which try to completely play around that. If you have seen QS Google quizzes, it takes Googling out of the equation to Google those questions, because by the time you parse what Arul is trying to say, the turn would be over. So yes, online quizzing during the lockdown has been fun, but at best it's like maybe 50% of the joy that the real thing gives you. So hopefully this won't last for more than a few months and we all get back to doing proper quizzing soon again.
Yes, sir. Even we are waiting to get back to proper online quizzing is fun, but the real joy that you get is during the offline physical quizzes.
Yeah, it's just a poor substitute. And how
Yes,
long will you keep eating margarine when you know that butter is the real thing?
true. So now let's open the chat box for questions from the audience. We'll take a few questions from the audience now.
Sure.
So there is one question from VCat Srinivasan. He's asking,
Hmm.
how would you explain the extent of your generation's influence on quizzing in India?
How do I explain what in quizzing in India?
How would you explain the extent of your generation's influence on quizzing in India?
Again, your voice broke just on that word. Can you just quickly type it out in the chat box? That might be
Okay.
extent of what. Yeah. All right. My generation's influence. Huh? I mean, I heard the word generation. I heard the word influence. I was wondering, was I missing something in the question? Because I don't think my generation has had any sort of an influence that is either greater than or lesser than any other generation's influence in quizzing. Quizzing is one of the nice things about quizzing is that it completely blurs the borders between things like age and stuff like that. I mean, if you look at open quizzes, yes, sure, college quizzing is age bound. You'll only see a certain group of people, and there's not enough diversity. But open quizzing in most cities, you will find everyone from teenagers to people in their 70s and 80s and everything in between come in there. And to me, each representatives of each of those generations, so there's usually what, some 4 or 5 generations in there, and representatives of each of them exert influence in their own way. Each of them would have brought a certain perspective to quizzing. Each of them, I mean, there are, for example, what would qualify as my generation? Am I what, an early millennial or something? Is maybe slightly lesser interest in, let's say, the whole meme culture and stuff like that. That might be what could be seen as. So questions tend to be not relying on those things and slightly more old school kind of a thing. But that doesn't mean that one sort of question is better than the other. I mean, even if you're going to use memes in your question, they can still be made very interesting. And all those basic tenets of the art of quizzing that we talked about in terms of framing them well and making them workoutable can still hold pretty much across any domain. So yeah, this question kind of confused me. I don't think my generation or whatever my generation stands for has had an influence than any other generation that's been quizzing.
Okay, I hope we can got his answer now. So moving on to the next question, Devrishi Kaur is asking, how is the cuisine scene in other countries different than in India?
Yeah, so my exposure to any other quizzing scene has been essentially pub quizzes in US and to some extent in UK. And of course, UK's quizzing culture, you're exposed to it quite a bit thanks to various quizzing shows on BBC and so on, and of late, Wiki Quiz as well. Uh, there, the focus, UK at least, the focus is more on very crisp, short questions and the kind of old notion of why some people think quizzing is just about mugging up a lot of facts and regurgitating them appropriately. A lot of how UK quizzes tend to be kind of match that. Pub quizzes in UK tend to be far more fun, far more focused on pop culture, and therefore far more accessible and more fun. US, it varies very widely. They have this whole quizzing bowl tradition, which is quite similar to how quizzing happens in India in the sense that, sure, that's not the onus of the question, the way it's been framed is not on how workoutable the question is, but then they again have a format where, the most obscure fact comes up first in the question and they eventually starts getting easier as you go down the question, because there the focus is on buzzing your answer as quickly as possible. So it is its own kind of quizzing. And even pub quizzes in US vary widely. So when I used to stay in LA for a bit, there was one pub quiz that I used to attend regularly. Happened in Santa Monica in a pub called O'Brien's, where 50% of the people who turn up there, they were all regulars who were turning up there, and them were ex-winners on Jeopardy and so on. So these were people who took their and the questions that you would see in that pub quiz, and they would just have a rotating array of quiz masters, just like most quiz clubs in India tend to do, different quiz master each week. The questions that you saw in that pub quiz were of a completely different nature from most of the pub quizzes that you would go to, where again it was more like current affairs and pop culture and rounds that are more conducive to you being half drunk when you're answering them. India is unique in the sense that I don't think any other country has such an extensive open quizzing culture as India does. And of course, with WQC and all of those things, there are bodies trying to bring about an open quizzing culture, but that idea of open quizzing is still limited to UK style and primarily solo answer short questions, primarily text questions kind of a thing. But India, that sense, has a very unique quizzing culture, especially the open quizzing culture, where, like I said, it's less mental sport and more of a very unique way of trying to work answers out from whatever little clues you've been given.
Yes, sir, agreed. The open quizzing culture is definitely unique to India, but the pub quizzing culture is also evolving these days with ace pubs and others.
Yeah, last couple of years, there's been a explosion of pub quizzes, at least Pune as well. Pretty much every pub has a weekly pub quiz happening. And good that there are parallel quizzing subcultures evolving. No one subculture really should have a complete control over, hey, this is what quizzing in India is, this is how quizzing in India is going to be defined. So more subcultures, the merrier. So I'm all for it.
True. So, moving on to the next question, Vedant Ghodke is asking, how would you define the evolution of quizzing from a general hobby to integral profession in India?
Yeah, lots of people now have it as pretty much, the way they earn their living, which is good, which shows that the interest in quizzing has just grown drastically over the years, that it has become a viable professional option for a lot of people. And most of these people make their money through their programs in schools and colleges and corporates and so on. And it's good that across the board, across people who can pay, there is this respect of the idea of quizzing as something that is mentally stimulating and something that is needed for their students or for their employees and so on. So it's great that it is happening. Personally, I tend to kind of do a separation of the church and the state kind of a thing. I'll never take up quizzing as my full-time profession because my fear is that I will start giving. For me, anything that I do as a job should at best be mildly interesting because that my tendency to get bored with something that I'm doing repeatedly is very high. So, and my biggest fear is that if I do quizzing full time, then I will very quickly start losing the joy that I find in quizzing. It's better if I look forward to doing a quiz 1 or 2 days a week maximum, as opposed to that becoming setting questions becomes the way I earn a living. But yes, but I'm glad that the market has changed to an extent where it is possible for so many people, and it's not just 1 or 2 companies. Yes, sure, 1 or 2 companies but there what per city there are at least 30 to 40 minimum quizzing startups, so to say, that go around doing quizzes in schools, colleges, and corporates. And it's nice to see that. It's nice to see that there's a market for it.
True, we are glad to know your views about quizzing as a profession and as a hobby too. So we'll take up a last question.
Sure.
Rohit Chaudhary is asking, will online quizzing become a sort of new normal now?
I'm not a big fan of this new normal phrase. It keeps getting bandied about a lot, especially in my work context as well. We have no idea what the new normal is going to be. Whatever situation that's been imposed on us thanks to the pandemic is still evolving. We do not know what the new normal is. We'll find out soon enough. I don't believe what is happening right now entirely defines the new normal. Will online quizzing become far more prevalent than it used to be before the lockdown? Yes, most definitely. And I'm sure a lot of people have got a taste for Zoom quizzes and quizzes that they're doing on Discord and so on, especially in cities or in places where physical gathering has logistical challenges. Then this becomes a viable alternative for them to, for example, let's say a quizzing society can say, hey, we'll have a physical quiz once a month, but the 3 other weekends we're going to do it on Zoom and Discord. Those kind of things might start happening more regularly. But yes, I don't think, let's say, year down the line, online quizzing would have replaced physical quizzing completely. But yes, compared to a year ago, online quizzing will be more prevalent. Yeah, it's not the new normal. It's a glimpse of what could be part of the new normal later on.
Fair enough. I hope Rohit got his answer. Now, before we end this session, we'll have a short rapid fire. We'll be asking 3-4 questions to you, and you have to answer it immediately.
All right.
So my first question is, even someone has asked it in the live chat on YouTube. I guess Arnold has asked it, but who is your favorite quizmaster in India? You can
for me, it's Naveen Jaikumar. For the sheer way he conducts those quizzes, he a quizmaster is given a mic for a reason. It's not just him asking the questions that are there on the slide. He needs to bring in a lot more presence. He needs to have the audience, have the participants under his thrall, and nobody does a better job of that than Dr. Naveen. So for me, he would be my favorite.
The next question is, what is your favorite genre in quizzing?
See, personally, if I was participating and if I wanted to win every quiz, I would like every quiz to be about heavy metal music and science fiction. I know that will never happen. But I am from the Heinlein school of belief where I believe that I'm as generalist as they come. For me, therefore, general quizzes where there is a smattering of questions from across all topics, I would do much better in those quizzes than a quiz which specialized in one topic or the other.
Okay, and the last question for today, what do you like more, being a quizzer or being a quizmaster?
I mean, they're equally fun. So here I'm not going to pick one side over the other. Joys are completely different. in each of those cases, then therefore you can actually enjoy being both. You don't have to forego one to be good at the other. So I would love to be both a quizzer and a quiz master.
Okay. Thank you. A very insightful session. It was a privilege to have you as a chief guest for today.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks a
sure
lot
that
for having me over. Thanks for there were so many better things you could do on a Saturday morning on a public holiday. So whoever listened, thanks a lot for patiently listening to me ramble.
I'm sure our conversation will inspire budding quizzers to take up quizzing more often after this conversation. So thank you, sir, once again. Hope to work with you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Tatharva. And thanks to everyone at QuizSoc and VIT Pune. Yeah, like you said, in the future, let's have a physical version of this sometime.
True. Yes, definitely.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us anywhere, because we'll have another session with VCat, Arnold D'Souza, and Manas Deep, where where they'll be talking about quizzing and much more, quizzing, cricket, and much more. So have your lunch and get back at 1:30 p.m. to tune in to that session. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
But can you see VCat? I can't see him now. I can only see his.
That's you.
Arnold, you might want to switch towards a bit towards the center. Only see your left side.
Really?
No, I can see
Yes.
very clearly.
No, I'm in the
Okay.
center. I'm smack bang in the center.
Okay, I think we need not bother about each other's
Yeah.
anything.
Okay. Yes, I can see all three of you. Parth, are you good to go?
My only problem is the grid view is working for me, so I can only see one person at a time, but that's okay. Yeah, same. Is that some sort of a setting that you have that Manas is on the is like pinned or something?
Yeah, he's trying to sort it out. एक मिनट. ठीक है पार्थ? Yeah.
And I can see only Manas.
I can see all three of you.
Right. Interesting shirt, Manas. For the new.
Mine's on grid, yes.
Yeah, I can see three people: Manas, Naman, and Arnold.
We can start off as long as the one that you're sharing on YouTube on the stream has everyone on it, then it's fine. I mean, I don't have to see everyone. Oh, rejoin again, maybe.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is maybe we should rejoin again if you want. You can rejoin again and see. It should be like Manas is pinned for me somehow, but I don't know how.
Do you think I need to change something at my end?
I don't know it. I think maybe Manas has done something and he's pinned his video.
I am just like I did what I did yesterday. Yeah.
My grid view is turned on. Yeah.
Let me just try and reconnect once. Huh? Yes, I'll do it.
Now he's joined again. What do we get? And now we are back to only Manas.
Yeah,
I can see all. I can see everyone. Naman, Arnold.
You can, but we can only see you.
No.
I can see
Even I
everybody.
can see. I can also see everyone.
I can see everyone.
Okay, as long as we have the YouTube stream with everyone, then we can just go ahead.
On YouTube, I see only
The
Naman.
thing is, the thing is, on YouTube only I am visible.
I can try turning it back on again. But I mean, the thing is,
No.
I can't see.
It's on.
Nothing is off.
I'm right here.
Yeah, now we see.
We
Saket is typing that VCat, Naman and Arnold were visible.
Yes, yes, they were.
Yeah, it's coming and going. It's coming and going on YouTube.
No,
Like
I
it
did
comes
on
for a
first.
second and then
Yeah,
disappears.
even Arnold is visible now.
Let's try it one more time.
Arnold
Let,
came
Yeah.
up.
let me try it one time. Let me try it one time. Just give me.
Arnold,
Let me so rejoin then, I guess.
No, Arnold, you are fine. Don't do that. You
Okay.
are already visible
Yeah.
on YouTube. Just give me a second. I think we can. Me and you need to.
No. You don't do that, VCat.
yeah, I'm still on Skype. I can see everybody.
Okay.
Even I can see everybody, but on YouTube only Naman is visible.
Yes, same.
I have
Yeah,
switched
again
over to.
Arnold has come.
Arnold, the name has come.
No. He is visible now.
No, not on YouTube. I can't see
No,
him.
on
I have
YouTube. On YouTube.
okay, but
Just
I
now.
have. I am live.
Now everybody's gone. Oh, Arnold is back.
Okay. Uh, पार पार्थ तुझा ऑडिओ ऑफ करतो का? Okay. So I guess everyone is visible now.
No, I don't see myself, but regardless, on YouTube, I meant.
Yeah. Parth, on YouTube, only I and Arnold are visible now, and I am out of frame. Okay. So I guess when the pictures appear, then only I will start. Yes. Okay. Everyone is visible now. Whew, so let's start.
Oh yes. There's a delay. Yes. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, all of you. Welcome back. Now we have with us as our panelists three veteran quizzers from Pune, legendary quizzers from Pune. I'll have to rephrase that. VCat, Arnold D'Souza and Manas Deep. They will be narrating their past quizzing experiences and having a nice chat on cricket. India loves cricket, but these guys know cricket. So you will find out why I'm saying this in the next 1 hour. So don't leave your seats because you will be experiencing an enthralling session. Let me first begin by introducing them. VCat, his real name is Venkat Srinivasan. You can message him personally if you have any queries regarding the same. VCat is known more for coining silly terms and phrases than any actual great quizzing skills, according to him. But I've seen him quizzing, though, makes it to the finals every time and wins a lot too. Some of his catchphrases have been adopted by the quizzing fraternity across continents ever since he attended BCQC sessions from 2007. Yeah, continents. You heard me correct. VCat has multiple time zones on every device he uses. I had to remind him of today's event using Pacific Daylight Time. Okay, I am stealing VCat's speech. Don't worry, you will be hearing all about him today. Then we have as the second person on our panel, Arnold D. Souza. Arnold is an alumnus of VIT Pune 2006 computer batch. Yeah, he's our college alumnus. I say that with pride because he's an authority on cricket and a fantastic quizzer. He now works as a software engineer in IBM. Arnold started quizzing in third year because that's what all the cool people were doing. He has been a member of the BCQC since 2005. Arnold has been following cricket for almost about a quarter of a century, and his first real cricketing memories were of the 1992 World Cup. Most fascinating aspects of the game for him are the history and stats. He doesn't have any favorite cricketers, but his favorite cricket writers are Gideon Hay and David Frith. Think yourselves lucky because you will be learning a lot from him today. The third one on our esteemed panel is Manas Deep. He describes himself as a wannabe umpire who almost became a doctor and managed to become an engineer. Manas is from Ranchi and is still trying to find the key to surviving in a big city like Pune. He says Quizaway helps him to do that. A cricket enthusiast and a fantastic India quizzer, Manas has penned down an exquisite article in our magazine. He'll be elaborating on it soon. So, guys, do check out Manas's and VCat's blog in our magazine on QSOC VIT Pune. And yeah, VCat has written a nice, funny blog on his quizzing journey, and he'll be telling us more about it. Over to you, VCat.
All right. Thank you, Manas. Sorry, Naman. Naman and Manas always confuse the names. Thank you so much. And 1 second before, I want to ask if can hear me, right, all of you?
Yeah. You are clearly audible.
Fantastic. All right. So yeah, I was approached by Naman and the QSOC Society. We had a fantastic run of 70 quizzes and more since the lockdown began, and that's pretty much how I got to know Naman, Atharva, and the team. My fellow panelists or veterans, of course, I've known for years, on and off, outside of quizzing as well. All right. So, what I've written about is my experiences with quizzing since I was a child, and particularly what happened since I met my boat club, quiz club friends, right? So pretty much I discovered quizzing and I was looking for something in Pune. I posted something online and somebody called Abhishek Nagaraj wrote me back and said, hey, you know what, you want to join us? We meet on Sundays on the steps of the boat club, quiz club at COEP. So pretty much that. And yeah, I've been through quizzing quite some time. I won trophies for the Bishop School and all of that. And that back then it was like pretty much, you know it or you don't. And, all of that, we used to, pretty much I won several quizzes of those times, right from the back coming up front, just like, Pakistan used to do India those days. Pretty much that. So I was at those and kind of discovered the whole, workable question thing probably in the mid 90s. And that was something that, I'm pretty certain my compatriots from St. Mary's School, the girls' school that pretty much memorize answers, I'm sure they could never do that now to me. Impossible. So anyway, and then along the years, we had this whole thing about, KBC, every KBC season, I would be told, hey, easy for you, man, make me phone a friend, and then we'll split the 40 lakhs. It's a goddamn reality show. So, that's pretty much, what it was. And I got tired of all those jokes, and pretty much a lot of quizzes to get bored of it. And then I hate the term quizzing. And I was never good at GK. General knowledge is different. What does it call us again? That's what I just said. So anyway, over time, to promote quizzing, and this is something I really feel, very strongly about, is that you got to be inclusive. And I wrote a post back in 2011, which got a lot of traction a lot of online, war, fighting, etc. There are certain eminents that I shall not name that literally made it a personal match with me and other people, and it was funny because I kept adding fuel to the fire, and that thread lasted about 2.5 weeks until I was told by Suraj Menon to please close it. And pretty much it's all inclusive, and that post is called the Glacial Retreat Watchers Consortium, GRWC, and look for it if you want to. It's fairly revealing. All right, so moving on. Yeah, so this BCQC, of course, for I was wondering why I never heard about them. The interaction continues. I've been hosting, I've been participating. I'm nowhere in the league of the superstars like Kunal Savardekar and company, but I enjoy quizzing and attend as much as possible. Aside, of course, where I work right now is pretty much I got my job because of quizzing. Because I went to host a session at Extensia, and the CEO met me and said, "What do I do?" I said, "I run marketing for a mobile company." He said, "You should join us," and that's it. Voila, no interview. It's been 10.5 years since. Good to remember. I think encourage people. Step up at a quiz and say, "All right, I'm available. I'm no superstar. Don't do a deal. Get the junior most person to join you and try to win the quiz from that." Very important. Engagement is important. Attract, share anecdotes, whatever. Lots of humor, lots of voice, lots of acting. Any quizzes know about that I do pretty often. I mean, pretty much act out questions, I do voice for questions, etc. So that's pretty much that. Most important, how much you got means how much you got, which is typically answer the question. The cutoff is, it really kills you because you want to leave the quiz right there, because you tell me what the cutoff is, I'm done. I don't want to be there because I likely did not make it. And finally, get away from, stuff like missed by a whisker or team number X. That's it. Team number X is not going to show up, and half the audience is going to go. So don't do all of that. Make sure you engage. Everything is fine. Keep the mystery going, suspense going, etc. And WYGW is who you're going with. The classic deal-making question before a quiz. Thank you very much. Onward to Manas Deep.
Yeah. So Manas has written a nice article on cricket during partition. The players who played both for India and Pakistan. He has done a lot of research, taken a lot of pains. So he'll be telling a bit about that. Over to you, Manas.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. So firstly, congratulations to Naman, Atharva, and the entire team for this wonderful magazine that you've started with. And I must say, we were really blessed to have two very, very unique interactions that you had. Dr. Jain and followed by Thejaswi Udupa. I learned a lot during both these sessions. And also, rather than starting with my article, I'd like by thanking Naman and team for starting with something that actually prevented a lot of us from going into depression during the lockdown, which was the quarantine quizzes. So the only thing that we had with us to hang on to those days were the 8 p.m. slots, which Naman started every day at 8 o'clock. A question every 2 minutes. Me and VCat would kind of break all rules and send the answers on the group itself. Finally, Naman learned how to make it only admin can send messages, and from there, I think things took off really nicely. And suddenly, I hey, you have put a number of cricket questions on the blog, so why don't you try writing? So here I am, Ranchi boy, not really conversant with too many cricket trivia, and of course, with the people of the stature of Arnold and VCat here, there's hardly anything that I know. In fact, it took a lot of courage to start doing some research, and as Madam Jain also said in the first session, I think we are rather poor on documentation, whether it is history of our culture, any other kind of history or sport. So I had to almost give it a month in order to write the 2 pages, partly also because of my own poor writing skills. But then I guess there's something exciting in it, which is not so much about the English that it contains, but about the fact that so many things, come, the dots connect. If you'll read the article, there is one cricketer who kind of is the linchpin of everything that has connected India before and after partition. So there are a number of incidents recalled in the article, which perhaps some of us wouldn't have idea about if we are not really ardent cricket trivia searchers. It talks about people who have had the unique distinction of playing for both India and Pakistan. One of them actually played for India 5 years still after the partition, and then for some reason packed his bags, went back to Pakistan, played one more test match for them, ended up scoring the winning runs. So I'll leave it for you to read the article and find out who's that guy. But for me, the article was purely because of two reasons. The theme that Naman had in terms of independence, partition and all. And of course, the if you are an Indian cricket fan, then India versus Pakistan it is for you. Nothing else comes close. So that was it from my side. And I think back to Naman. Thanks.
Okay. So I guess VCat will play the role of moderator now. VCat?
Right. What about Arnold's introduction?
No.
I think he already did. He did the introduction.
Introduced everyone. Yeah.
All right. I thought there was more to that. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Again, yes, of course, Naman and team, Atharva, everybody. Thanks for giving us these exalted positions that I don't know if we deserve them, but fantastic. I like the morning speakers. Of course, Udupa, I know, and he's a great speaker. I was trying to ask him an extra question, but I was barred. So anyway, regardless, I'd love to do this. And there are lots of other trollers, but I'm not a troller. I'm more of a stroller. So we've got to, let's just start this. I'm interested in this cricketing discussion at this point. And I have a major interest in cricket, records, watching games, going extra crazy and provoking people. Enjoy that a lot. But to have these two guys on the stage, because Arnold, I always knew, was a walking, talking cricket encyclopedia, which was a surprise because he's known for other things besides quizzing. So more importantly, and Manas Deep, I realized, was a superstar as well over time in the past 4 months. And so I have no qualms talking about cricket with them today. And so here we go. And this is not a quiz, it's more like a discussion. And people can maybe pipe in the middle and ask questions on chat, and I will pose them to our panelists. All right? Okay. So why are we talking cricket today? Is it for that, vast, highly tuned audience with many armchair experts within? What do you think, guys? Why is cricket such a big deal in quizzing, especially, in India? There are lots of, finely tuned cricket quizzes, because does that mean, okay, I know a lot about cricket, so I qualify to be a quizzer? The moment a rock and roll question shows up or something in pop culture, I will hold my throat. So they'll keep quiet. So is that it? If I went someplace else, I find a lot of questions about cricket in quizzing. In fact, there are cricket quizzes, and if it's a Jain quiz too, there's a preponderance of cricket questions. Even a nightly random quiz questions, I see a lot of, literally, let's do some cricket questions. And then there's like a huge audience, and then I show up with some tennis or geography perhaps, and there's absolute silence. Tell me, Manas and Arnold.
I actually have the opposite opinion. I think there's too few cricket quizzes happening. But if there are sports questions in India, they're more likely to be about cricket than, like ice hockey or something. So that part at least is not surprising. And also, I think like one of the problems with cricket quizzes is that they're not very inclusive in the sense that they're very like stats based and trivia based, and like you have to know about cricket to get it. They're not very accessible to like non-cricket fans. So maybe that's something that can change.
Manas?
Yeah, so what I'll say is, I'm somewhere taking a middle ground between what you said and what Arnold said. So I'll say cricket is something that most Indians can indirectly relate them with. So all of us would at least have the remembrance of returning a Costco ball to a group of playing cricketers or something. So, while something like a rock or a very, very subject intensive quiz would lead you to feel shy, but cricket is something that you inherently connect with, at least in our part of the world. So that's why it's a huge draw. But yes, as Arnold said, the purists in cricket quizzing would perhaps like people to have more the non-glamour like questions and more cricket like questions in the sense unique achievements in the field and so on. So there are very few quizzes of that standard and that purity.
Okay. There is a question from Aditya. So he is asking, do you think that international cricket is suffering from becoming a global major sport because of heavy BCCI involvement?
I think it's definitely suffering, but not just the BCCI. I mean, the big three. You do tend to see the effects that they've had over the past, say, decade or so, and yeah, there was also a lot of sort of discussion about getting more teams into the World Cup, and they were not. A lot of people are not very happy that the last World Cup was limited to just 10 teams, which was like actually a drop down from the previous from 2015. So and it seems like a lot of bigger teams like India and stuff. India doesn't want to play a lot of new teams, so they hosted Afghanistan for Afghanistan's first test match. They also played Bangladesh's first test match, but I think then it took like another 10 years for them to play Bangladesh again after that, or at least visit Bangladesh to play a match. So yeah, I think there is definitely a problem of I would say not the BCCI in particular, but the big three having things their way and preferring that the power remains with 2 or 3 boards rather than be spread across.
Okay. Even I had a
just one point I'd like to add on that is that I am not very fond of the other extreme as well. So recently, I think like about 2 years ago, they extended status for T20s to like just about 100 different teams. So you have like team like Qatar playing some Djibouti and something like that, and they all have ODI status and T20 international status, which to me in a sense kind of pollutes the record book. So my main love of cricket is more stats based and history based, and from a statistical point of view, at least it just like dumps a lot of garbage into that pool. So yeah, I would definitely say that more opportunities are good, but we need more for a tier system where we can classify those as maybe different, and then you can have teams moving between tiers, but just giving everyone the same status to me has ended up with like so many records in the last 2 years in T20 internationals that are literally irrelevant, because the Czech Republic got like bowled out for 10 or something, and that becomes like the lowest score now. So yeah, from that point of view, yes, there is a problem.
I didn't know Djibouti had a team, Anand.
I didn't either. I mean, I don't even know if they do, but it's probably like 5 Indians and 6 Pakistanis over there playing for them or something.
I don't know. Djibouti even exists right now. All right, Naman, can I just go to my next one, please? I wanna hear from these two guys. All right. Okay, Arnold and Naman, and we'll start with Naman. Manas 10. Right, Manas. I just want to ask you about that amazing.
VCat, just a second. Arnold and Manas, you aren't visible. Can you just switch off your
am I
video?
not?
Yes.
Can I? Is it any better now? I don't know.
No, Parth can't see you. So just try putting off your video and again starting.
Yeah, I'm trying that.
I'll try that. Yeah. I just did that. So maybe it will take a few seconds.
Yeah, just let me know.
Yeah, definite lag. You can see that. Oh no.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, for the benefit of our audience, I'll just add to what Arnold said. See, cricket is the love for cricket generally builds in 3 stages among people. First, maybe as a kid you watch people playing. Then there's a stage 2 in which you start playing and watching, and watch to improve yourself as a player. And step 3 is you go back into either watching and or passing your knowledge to the next generation. So perhaps the first bit is something that's not as developed as in the case of a more global sport like football, which is why thinking that for say a World Cup in cricket would start attaining the same quality like a World Cup in football immediately is a tall task. And therefore, what Arnold said makes a lot of sense. You have to have teams in different tiers, and then they need to compete. They need to learn from competition, and then, of course, come on to a higher pedestal.
Okay. VCat, you can proceed.
All right, fantastic. So I'm just intrigued, and so we'll go with Manas first. Just tell me about this, and I have this old memory, anyways. That amazing moment of live cricket action that you saw on TV or at the ground. I mean, tell us about it. I mean, what is the first sense like, oh my God, this happened. I'm right here at the stadium, or I'm right here, For me, it was like that, Venkatesh Prasad, knocking out Amir Sohail, for example. And I was like, oh my God, these things can happen. Fantastic, Something similar to that. I'm intrigued to hear from both of you.
Yeah. So there are plenty of memories that way, but I'll start with how I have been very unlucky for Team India whenever I have been to the stadium. So the first match that I saw was India versus West Indies somewhere in 2003-04 in Jamshedpur, a match which is more known for the bottle throwing that my fellow audience did. I wasn't one of them, so leave me aside on that. And the fact that while it did help India to get some time, and Windies have had to play almost in the darkness, but ultimately we end up losing on the second last ball when Ram Naresh Sarwan hit Ashish Nehra for a 4. So that's a bad memory. Another bad memory is when I got tickets to what would have been the India versus England tied match in 2011 World Cup. Unfortunately, at the last moment, the venue got changed from Kolkata to Bangalore. I wasn't able to witness what in my view is one of Sachin's greatest one-day international innings. But thankfully, I also had the tickets to the India versus South Africa game. There, a live site, perhaps some of us would remember, a bouncer from Dale Steyn, which Sachin hooked for a 6, the square leg boundary. And this was his last international one-day international century within India. So I was fortunate enough to witness that. Unfortunately, once again, India lost. And the last bit is, in my quest to see Team India winning overseas, I actually went till Nottingham last year, 2019. But the match, it rained out, guys. India versus New Zealand. So,
all right. Can we move some positive memories? I'm looking for
I mean, if you want to see India winning overseas, England is like not a place that most people would pick as a very wise choice to go and hope that they win overseas. But
absolutely, I do remember one incident. India versus Pakistan. Venkatesh Prasad fielding at mid off and running a batsman out by throwing the ball between his legs. So that is one memory that remains. I think many of us oldies would perhaps recall that moment.
Yeah, but I was looking for something like electric, fantastic, positive, life-affirming.
So that is the same match, Ajay Jadeja. The thrashing that he gave Waqar Younis. And that Waqar's face was like, this is what you deserve, guys. Waqar, go off. So that was something really great. And of course, the 2003 innings wherein Shoaib Akhtar was shown his place by Sachin Tendulkar. That 1-6 followed by Sehwag emulating him in the next over, showing what he could do at a relatively lesser pace of Waqar Younis. So those memories will stay with me forever.
All right, moving to Arnold.
I don't know. If I had to pick one, it would probably be from what was I'm not a big fan of ODIs, but my favorite ODI would be 1999 at Baston, the semi-final, Australia, South Africa. So just that last over. And I don't have a favorite team in cricket. I know it's Independence Day today, but I'm going to say that I don't even really support India. I'd rather India lose in a good close match than they win by like a landslide. But if I had to be partial to some team, I'd probably say I'm a fan of the Australian cricket team. So that semi-final had everything, literally everything in it. And I'm also a Vaughan fan, so that's
great.
I mean, there was just everything there.
This wasn't specific to ODIs, by the way. Even a test memory would do good.
Yeah, but I'm picking an ODI one.
Picking an ODI one. All right, fine. I've seen you cheering for completely opposite sides that shall not be named in a
I mean, if like I said, I don't have any particular side. So if everyone's cheering for one side, then I kind of tend to root for like the other side, just so that you balance things a little bit.
Yeah, with the hint of violence,
Yes, at great
Moving
risk
on.
of physical harm. You're right.
Great personal risk. Anyway, all right. So cricket and quizzing question. Naman, I just finished this one, then you can take questions after this, and just finish them all off after that. Is that all right? Okay. Now, being the knowledgeable personages that you are, the both of you, have you ever encountered this situation where you felt that the QM, she was completely wrong, you knew better, have you kind of just thrown a pencil at her like some of our BQC guys do, or did you just walk off the stage, or did you just like humor her and just smile, okay, little girl, whatever?
Why are you assuming that the wrong QM is a woman though? That is what I don't understand.
This is the ghost of St. Mary's. Okay,
so
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Disregard. I mean, okay, it could be a male or female. It's all right.
So firstly, I would never walk off the stage because I'm hardly ever on stage. Just like another popular franchisee, I would like to name myself a part of Team 9 because that's where I always end up somehow and gain accolades from the quizmaster. But yes, there are occasions, there are cases like, people, particularly when it's a question related to women's cricket, wherein people forget that the double century that Mithali Raj actually scored was in a test match and not in a one day. So they start confusing, and so such things happen. Yes.
Okay.
But then,
I think that's actually become quite a favorite of quizmasters over the last few years, is that you ask a question where everyone thinks it's like men's cricket and the answer is, you don't specify like him or her, and then it turns out that it's a woman's thing because no one ever thinks of like women's cricket.
I remember something. We had a cricket quiz in our quarantine quiz session, and there was a cricket by Aditya Yawalkar on blind cricket cup. Do you guys remember?
Yes.
Yeah, so no one cracked it. Yes, the blind cricket thing.
I think I guessed women's cricket for that because like I'm not going to think of blind cricket, but I knew that whatever was said over there didn't apply to or didn't fit any men's cricket stuff. So I think I just went with like women's cricket World Cup as a guess or something.
And there are VCat issues like, say, people say that, for example, the Bapu Nadkarni, the epic spell. But if you look at it technically, then Arnold will tell you that there is another fellow who has equal claim to the record of bowling the most number of continuous maiden overs or maiden deliveries rather. So those are issues that do come in. So of course, in a purist kind of a cricket quiz, the quizmaster better be very, very prepared and thorough in his research or her research.
Okay, so we have two people from BCQC commenting. Aditya Gadre and Pranay Jha have asked, please share your best impressions of your favorite commentators.
Impression or impersonation? Because I think impersonations only VCat can do. But
no. Yeah. I guess I have received it on the WhatsApp thing. So it's like, please share your best. Okay, so it may be impersonation. Can someone check the chat box?
And I think it's a marvelous question.
I think VCat is trying to do that.
No, I'm not. I don't do commentators.
Was that Aditya Gadre taking?
Yeah, it was Gadre. It was Gadre.
I can't do an Australian accent, but I'm still trying to say marvelous with an Australian accent. I just can't. But I think if you ask me for my favorite commentator, it would easily be Richie Benaud. I mean, I don't think anyone else is close.
I agree. Richie Benaud is a personal favorite, although I cannot impersonate. But Mark Nicholas would, amongst the current commentators, I guess, come close. He seems to be quite erudite in the way he explains things.
Okay. I think the problem I have with Mark Nicholas is something that I had with Tony Greig as well, who was great in terms of like, just mass audience popularity. But for me, he just got too excited. I mean, I don't want to hear him, just having some sort of a fit or something on this thing when I'm watching a cricket match. I still remember that Sharjah innings of Sachin, and this guy was going insane. It was taking away from the actual cricket over there. So I think that in that respect, Richie Beno knew how not to speak, and I think that was important.
A personal question from my side. So, what do you guys think about Sanjay Manjrekar?
Maybe the guy wearing the Sanjay Manjrekar shirt from the 1992 World Cup can answer that.
Oh,
are you wearing a Manjrekar shirt? No.
It's a shirt, but yes, 92 was not good for any Indian fan or cricketer that way. So, Manjrekar as a cricketer or as a commentator?
As a commentator, he is involved in a lot of controversy.
So, see, we all know what he has said, and I think he has been made to more than. So we about him. But then so there are issues that with Indian cricketers, for example, people playing way past their prime, and there are people who need to question those kind of age-old practices which somehow deprive young cricketers from getting their spot in the team. So there were specific comments that he made, but of course one needs to calibrate, because there are a number of factors playing into how you become popular as a commentator these days, not the least bit of which is which board you represent during the transmission. So of course Manjrekar is unique that way, and I wouldn't mind listening to him, but I would things like the discussion that he had with Harsha Bhogle during the day and night test match, those are not really welcome discussions. But at the same time, if he can come with the clarity that he comes with in his autobiography, which incidentally is one of my favorite autobiographies for any Indian cricketer, that would be very welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, any other questions in the chat box?
There are other questions.
I think I agree that Manjrekar does make the sometimes needed blunt points that a lot of other people who are BCCI spokespersons, as VCat would say, refuse to do. And yeah, he might be wrong more often than not, or at least quite often. But at least in a few cases, he's also apologized later, saying that, not for having said it, but for having been wrong about it. And I think that's fair enough. Bits and pieces from the semi-finals in the 2019 World Cup comes to mind.
Okay, so we'll be taking another question and moving on to the rapid fire round.
I see a question on the role of Rishabh Pant in the Indian team. I think VCat and Arnold love him, so maybe their views.
I am actually too old to even know who he is, but but I do like what I've seen of him though, and I think he's also like one of those hit and miss kind of guys, but those are the exciting ones. So I think hit and miss. I think consistency is kind of overrated in cricket, to be very honest, because consistent players are really going to win you matches. It's more of the ones you look at actually the greatest players who had the most impact over the years were not the most consistent ones. They were the ones who on their day could win a match, and that's what's important.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Okay. So, VCat, you are audible.
No. I just said how much time do we have? So
we have 15 minutes. We have 15 minutes.
All right. There are questions from other people. I can see that.
Okay, let's take them. Not a problem.
Meanwhile, maybe Arnold, with your knowledge, you can tell us the most mind-blowing fact that you learned about cricket during your quizzing or reading career.
I'm going to have to think about that one actually. But
actually,
I was
after you complete, Arnold, there is a nice question from our technical guy, Parth. So after you complete this,
go ahead with that. Go ahead with that, and I'll think of the fact in the
okay
on the side. Yeah.
Should the racial quotas in the South African national, do the racial quotas in the South African national cricket team continue?
Should they or do they?
No, do they? He has written should they. I will rephrase it. Do they continue?
Well, they are on right now, so whether they continue or not is not a thing. I mean, should they is the question.
Okay, should they continue? Yeah, should they continue? I didn't know about do they. So
no, Naman, nobody asked these questions in '92 when they came back into international cricket, right? So this is a very different kind of. It's not a yes or no kind of a subject. I think over a period of time, as happens, it's more of a cultural evolution than a cricket evolution. Arnold, I think your views on this.
I don't know. I mean, I've actually made a point earlier at on several forums saying that the decline in South African cricket over the last few years has been because they've been playing too many players just to match or meet the quota requirements. But then looking it up, I think statistically there wasn't too much to lend credence to that point of view. And also the other thing is that I think it's important. You definitely need. They have like people of color, black, Asian, whatever, have been underrepresented in South Africa since the beginning. I mean, it's only been in the last I'd say 2 decades that we've actually had non-white cricketers playing for South Africa, and most of them have been bowlers. There's been only one batsman of note, right? Bavuma. You don't really have any batsmen. The reason for that is because they don't have a system that brings up black people in South Africa and gives them enough of a chance to become good enough to represent the country. So yes, there is an issue. I don't know if a blanket reservation system is the best idea, but you definitely need to improve the lower grassroots level system to get enough diversity in the people who then can represent the country. Because so one of the reasons why all of them are bowlers is because most of them grew up bowling. It's like how in England, when you had the class system from 1 century ago, when you had professionals and amateurs, you had all the professionals were mostly bowlers and all the amateurs were batsmen, because the bowlers had to do the hard work of bowling all the time, and they became bowlers. They were professional, they were paid to do that. Other guys, amateurs, came and batted for 2 hours and then went home after that. So the reason why they were bowlers and mostly black bowlers, because they were the guys who were made to do all the hard work of bowling all the time. They just picked that up and started doing that. So you don't have black batsmen because you don't have the right system at the lower level. So that needs to change. I don't think I'm always against just blanket reservations in any case. So I have a pretty off-center view on that. But yes, I think there is definitely improvement, and it needs to continue, but from a lower level rather than from the top state.
Okay. So
Naman, please disregard Debanjan Bose's question. It is clearly directed at me.
Which one?
The one about quizmasters considering imitating bowling actions and batting stances and tennis serve actions. Yeah. Should QMs consider imitating bowling actions, batting stances, and tennis service actions to illustrate the question or some rubbish? Has this been done in quizzes? That is.
So I think, Manas, just regarding your last one, I'm trying to think of fun cricket facts. But since you asked me the one that astounds me the most, and I'm just it still blows my mind, is I think the 2007 and 2011 World Cup, I'm not sure which two, but 2 consecutive ones had the exact same number of runs scored in each of them. And the number was something like 100,000 and some 101,000 something, right? So for them to be exactly equal is probably like a 1 in 10,000 chance or some shit like that, or even more than that. So you could have 10,000 World Cups and you would probably not have 2 World Cups having the exact same number of runs. So, but I told you I'm a stats guy, and for me, that is probably one of the most mind-blowing coincidences.
So, ladies and gentlemen watching on YouTube, the next time you want to have a cricket quiz done, you know who to go to.
I'm very bad at setting quizzes, though, so I'd love to take part.
Okay.
Unless you mind VCat, because then you'd probably get imitating the bowler's action or something on stage, and might throw his elbow or something, or throw his shoulder over there.
Or throw my shoulder. Alrighty.
I guess we should start with the rapid fire round.
Is this where our internet starts to go bad? Okay, Naman. All yours.
Yeah, I will start with VCat first. So 5 rapid fire questions for everyone. So I'll start with VCat first. So VCat, the first question is the quizzing genre you hate the most.
Actually, it is. Damn. I'll tell you what. Hold on. Actually, it's gaming.
Gaming. Okay. So you hate, gaming like PC gaming and all?
Generally, collaborative, PC, whatever.
Okay.
Even as I'm
so
pretty
moving on. Okay, moving on. Second rapid fire question. Complete the following: washing powder Nirma, washing powder Nirma.
Something, shushma. I'll tell you what. Something, washing powder Nirma, something. Oh, damn! I know this one.
This is better than any bowling action getting imitated. Huh?
Then I'll do the tune for you. Something Shushma Nirma.
Okay.
That's
moving on. This is I will give a motto of a certain university. You have to guess the university. Knowledge crowns those who seek her.
Yeah, this is like, you know it or you don't, man. Is it VIT?
VIT won't have such a sophisticated motto.
Oh gosh.
Take a glance at your
Is this one of the many
universities
that VCat has attended?
Yeah, it's your college's motto.
This is not my college's motto.
Yeah, the reason why I asked it.
It looks like some
you have
Ramji
to
Maharaj
specify
this thing.
You have to specify which college, Naman.
No, I told him.
Really? I got to find this out. I never knew this one.
Is this Syracuse or where is this?
Syracuse.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Not bits.
Okay.
So basically, we know VCat has not attended at least one of the universities that he claims to have attended. I mean, whether he was actually from like Bishops or Marys or whatever, who knows?
Yeah. I like my many passports. Yeah, sure.
And the last question for you, VCat, is mimic Sushma Swaraj. Yeah, I wanted that. Yeah. Okay. So moving on to Manas now. So Manas, your net is working fine. I don't want any issues. So according to you, what name should Yogi Adityanath choose for Ben Stokes?
Ben Stokes. That's a good one. Maybe Badrinath or something. I don't know. Maybe Badrinath comes close, but I think, yeah, Badrinath should be fine.
क्या आपके टूथपेस्ट में नमक है?
Pounce.
टूथपेस्ट में बहुत ज्यादा ही नमक है यार.
Okay.
आपके सवाल में बहुत नमक है.
And now sing the anthem of Kolkata Knight Riders.
So see, Jeetvo just doesn't apply to them anymore. So Jeetvo, Corpo, Lorbo, dash, whatever you can add.
Harbo.
Maybe they can. The chief minister can still paint her paintings behind that. So
were they inspired by the Marx brothers, or was it like Groucho, Harpo, Chico?
Pretty much that. Hey, namak wala toothpaste was Lara Datta, I think.
It's not a quiz. It's not a quiz, VCat.
I had to say something. All right.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it's
and where is Dalma National Park located? Not a national park, I guess. Dalma Sanctuary.
it's my ex-town, the town I mentioned where Ram Naresh Sarwan actually hit a four of the second last ball, Jamshedpur. I think Arnold would know this. I think only one match India has won there, an ODI, in which Saurav Ganguly scored a century. Other than that, I think we've played some 3 or 4 matches and lost all of them.
So basically, you should stop attending matches over there, right? Is what you're saying.
It's
all your fault.
I have attended one with 100% loss record.
Okay, moving on to Arnold. So Arnold, your favorite place to visit in Goa?
In Goa, well, most of it is Russia now. So I think I'd have to stay to the South Goa. So Palole or something probably. North Goa is all Russians, unfortunately, and that's where my house is.
Okay. So moving on, number of test wickets taken by Wasim Akram.
Wasim Akram has 414 or 15.
14 on the buzzer.
414.
Yeah.
Right.
And which college is referred to as Upper Ki IIT? IIT Upper.
Unlike VCat, I did actually go to Vishwakarma Institute of Technology, so I do know that is the answer.
Okay. And your last question is: MS Dhoni strikes it into the stands. Impersonate Billy Bowden. You are Billy Bowden.
You can't see the whole thing, right? But there you go.
Yeah.
If the video is not clear, it might look like I'm showing another finger, and then that would be a problem on YouTube. So.
No. The thing is, there was a bit of problem on YouTube, so I've recorded this whole thing. 30-35 minutes. मैंने पूरा recording कर दिया है, in which all 3 of you are visible, so we can upload it later on YouTube.
Cool.
So will we need lawyers or something?
So that might actually be one of VCat's alternate professions also. So we're safe over there.
Seriously, man. All right. Okay. We had a good time.
Okay. So I guess we ended right on time, 2:30.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you, Thank you for joining, taking out your time on a weekend.
Thanks, Naman. It was a lot of fun. And congratulations on the magazine.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
We need to get the word out about the magazine and do as much as we can, and of course use our respective networks. Naman, Athar, and then QSOC team. Fantastic session, fantastic roundup, of course, well organized. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great job, Naman and team. I hope people do find the article useful, and you can perhaps direct to them if they have any queries. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I like the article, Manas.
Yeah. Thanks. That's a high praise.
Alrighty.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Weekend.
Okay. Thanks. Take care, viewers.
See you.
Yeah.
Bye.